So the world's going mad, and one of the things I've been hearing about a lot is a fertiliser problem, and the cost of fertilisers starting to become prohibitive for farmers to actually use them. And it's made me think about how that's going to affect people like us who are the small consumer of fertilisers. Now, I don't use fertilisers really on my allotment. I prefer to be as natural as possible, but one of the things that I do use is a tomato feed, and it got me thinking that maybe I could look at alternative ways now, while I've got the time to do so, of growing my tomatoes. And then if it comes to next year, next season, and there's a problem with me managing to get that, I already know what's going to work best for my tomatoes, and it might be that something works much better than the feed that I've been using from the shop. So that's what I'm going to play about with today. I'm going to do three, I think, different fertilisers that I've been researching this week. And then what I plan to do is feed one particular tomato plant each feed, and we're going to label them up so I know which one's which. And then we'll see, I've got 4 of the same varieties, so we'll see which one does better throughout the season when it starts fruiting, and we can see which one we get the best results. One of the ones I'm going to hold back, and I'm going to keep using the regular tomato feed on that, so we'll keep that as a test subject so we know what we're comparing against. It's very scientific, this. If you're someone who loves pure science, then this probably is not going to be for you. This is just my own little experiment. So the first thing that I'm going to use is going to be nettles. Nettles are an absolutely amazing fertiliser, and I have used them before for just all of my plants. Usually in the middle of summer, I tend to feed everything with a nettle fertiliser. So something that most people would see as a weed, I definitely do not. It's so full of vitamins and minerals that the plants absolutely love. The only downside with making a nettle fertiliser is that it really doesn't smell great. So if you've got neighbours that are close by and you make a nettle fertiliser, you might want to put a lid on it, because it does tend to get a little bit stinky after a few weeks. So I'm going to gather up some nettles, and I'm going to put them into, I've got a big bin, I'm going to put them into a bin with some water, and we'll make a fertiliser from those. The second one I'm going to do is a banana peel fertiliser. Now, a few days ago, we'll go and have a look in a minute, I chopped up some banana peels and I put them in a bucket with some water, and it goes through a fermenting process. So I've got that going, and it actually smells quite nice at the moment. So I'm going to use that on one of them. And then the last thing that I'm going to use is going to be human pee. Now, that might not be something that a lot of people feel comfortable with, but in our family, when we come up here, everybody uses the toilet. We've got a lot of it going around, and from my research, it is super nutritious for plants, and really safe to use as well. It's just in a diluted quantity. Everything's diluted down anyway, and it doesn't make any difference. It's not unhygienic or anything like that. So I'm going to give that a try as well, and then, like I said, we'll keep a control case with just the standard tomato fertiliser. So let's gather up some nettles. We'll go and make the nettle up, and we'll get the tomatoes labelled up as well. I've got my bin, some scissors, and most importantly, some gloves. Let's get these cut. I'm just cutting them, and I'm just going to chuck them in the bin just like this. That one got me. So I'm not being very scientific. I filled up about a quarter of this bin, and then I'm going to top it all up with some water, and we'll make it into some kind of nettle tea. So this is the nettles that I've collected. I did get a little bit carried away, and I found some cleavers, the sticky weed, and I thought, well, I'm going to throw some of them in as well, because it was all just growing together, and a couple of dandelion leaves as well. So that's all mixed into there. I told you this was going to be very scientific, didn't I? And then I've already poured a bucket of water on, so I'm going to top it up with more water. I'll put another couple of buckets of water into there, and then I'll try and just weigh the nettles down with something as well. It's really full up with water now, so I'm just giving it a very nice mix round. What I want to do is bash down the nettles a bit so that they get a bit bruised, and their leaves get all a bit bruised and bashed up, so they release their nutrients a bit easier. Could have done it by hand, but for these gloves, they don't hold the stingers back very much, so it hurts. Now, the only thing I was thinking is to be careful of, if you ever do make this, is because I threw a load of random weeds in here, but the one thing I'm always really careful of is I use nothing that's flowering or seeding. I'll chop those bits off if they are, just because I don't want seeds going into my plants. That's happened to me before. And then obviously the weeds start growing in plants, so it's not a good idea. But that's the only thing really to be careful of. So now they've been all bashed up a bit, I'm gonna throw a stone on top to try and hold them down a little. Got this nice big one here. I'm gonna put that in. So that's got a lot of them now trapped underneath it. I might throw another one in as well, because I don't think it got very many of them. And then I'll show you the banana peel that I made. This is the bucket I've made the banana peel fertiliser in. It's not as big, and I am going to keep making it throughout the season because it only takes a few days really to ferment well enough. So I've put in here four banana peels, some of them, with about 2 pints of water into there, and that's been brewing for about 3 days now in there. It's just it was a muddy bucket, so it's not very nice and clean in there, and that's all I've done. And do you know what, actually it smells all right, it doesn't smell too bad, and it was nice and bubbly as well this morning when I came to it, which I guess means that the fermentation process has started to take place, so that's good. So we're going to use that on one plant, we're going to use the nettle on the other plant, we're going to use pea on one of the plants, and then we're going to use just a normal tomato feed on the last plant, and we'll see which one comes along the best. I'll show you the tomatoes I've been growing these since mid-March, so they're coming along quite well. So these are the plants. They're just starting to set some flowers on them, and they're black. I think they are black opal or black beauty, one or the other. Let me have a look. Black opal. So they're all black opal. I tried to pick 4 of the same, so hopefully they're all the same. This one doesn't have a label in, but it looks the same. So, so for technical reasons and keeping everything the same for our control in this really scientific experiment, these are the ones we're going to use. So I've got the 4 of them here. They're all at about the same age, same stage of growth, all just setting their first flowers. So if we start feeding them from this week onwards, I do have some nettle fertiliser already made that I made a few weeks ago, so I'll start with that and then we'll move on to this bucket afterwards. I'm going to go for once or twice a week, maybe twice a week. I'm going to feed them and we'll see how they go with those fertilisers, and we'll see which ones end up with the most fruit. Let's put them inside. I'll show you inside the polytunnel where they're going to live. We'll put them all in there together. We'll give them each a feed with their fertiliser, and we'll get them all set up. This is my second polytunnel on that new allotment that I was at last week, where I planted my sweet potatoes, which are still alive in these straw bales, in case anybody was wondering. I had some great advice last week on these straw bales. Apparently I should have prepared them beforehand by watering them every day. So what I'm doing is I'm just chucking buckets of water over them 2 or 3 times a day now, trying to make them soft enough for the sweet potatoes to be able to grow in. But the good news is I've kept them alive for a week, so that's good. Right, so I've got some lollipop sticks, and I'm going to label up my tomatoes. So I've got 4 tomatoes. So the first one's going to be pea, so we'll put that in there. Second one's going to be banana, so we'll stick that in that one. Next one is going to be tomato feed, and the last one is going to be nettle plus other friends, some others. Okay, So I've got those here, so I'm just sticking them into the tomatoes that are down here next to me, and then we'll get all of them watered. What I'm going to do is, in my really technical scientific procedure, is I'm going to put about a quarter of whichever feed I'm using into the watering can. Apart from the tomato feed, I'll use that to its required recommendations, but yeah, about a quarter of the nettle, quarter of the banana, and about a quarter of a watering can's worth of pea. Fill it up to the top with water, and then I'll give each plant its own feed in, and then obviously I use the rest on I've got some cucumbers over here, so the cucumbers can have a nice mixture of fertiliser to use the rest up. So let's get them watered. So this is the first one. This is my watering can. This is the banana, so give that a nice watering with the banana. Probably stand a little bit extra today because I didn't water them yesterday. Okay, it's the banana. So this is the one that's being watered with the urine water. A nice watering. Just to mention with this as well, I am not curing or leaving this urine for a long period of time. We're using it fresh. When it comes out, it's generally reasonably sterile. So yeah, we're not really curing it, so we're just using fresh on it. Whatever day, we use whatever we've got. And then the last one we've got is the standard tomato fertiliser. So it's going on there. Okay, so they've all been nice and labelled up. So all these 4 tomato plants have all been labelled up. They've all had their first feed with the chosen fertiliser. And what we'll do is, once they start fruiting, we'll check back in on them and we'll see how they're getting on and how they're looking. And then once they're obviously in full fruit, we can check on them again, and then we'll see how much we get off each one. I'm quite excited about this one, really. Hopefully we get some good results, but if it all goes wrong and I kill them all with all my crazy concoctions of fertiliser, it's okay, because I do have another 25 plants up in my other polytunnel as a backup, so we'll be all right. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.